Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sutherland, and I'm glad that you've joined me for the Family Healing Room's Triumphant Relationships Club. As always, we'll be talking together through some of the principles and tools that you can use in your daily life as you address your relationship challenges. As always, our goal is to help you move forward in making your relationships strong, rewarding, and satisfying. So, let's go ahead and take a look at today's course. We're talking today about communication. In part one of our communication focus, we talked about how critical it is to be able to effectively communicate our thoughts. And if you have been practicing your skills in that area, you're well on your way to being able to improve your communication skill set and then layer this additional lesson on top of that to have even greater impact. The second skill that you'll need to continually work on to improve communication within your relationships is listening. So, the first thing that I can imagine you might be saying is, I know how to listen. I hear what my family members or my loved ones tell me, my son, my daughter, my spouse, my sibling, my parent. I hear it all the time. Well, let me tell you a story. Several years ago, I provided professional counseling services for a single mom. We'll call her Lila and her daughter Grace for the purpose of confidentiality. So Lila was about 46 and Grace was about 15. And they were with me as I helped them deal with the significant conflicts they were experiencing. When processing a particularly difficult and damaging interaction from the previous week, I remember Grace, who was 15, in frustration, really angrily yelled to her mother, "Why should I even talk to you? You never listen to me." And she was riled up at that point. "Nothing I say is important to you," she was communicating to her mother. And what I recall Lila saying was, "I listen to you all the time, but it doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't really understand you. I don't understand how you think. I don't understand how you act." And that was really the bulk of what Lila responded at that time. You know, at the heart of that exchange was a plea from Grace to her mother to be truly heard and understood, not just her words, but her feelings and any pain that might be attached to those feelings. And Lila's struggle, her mom's struggle, was that she could not really see beyond her child's words and her behaviors to really experience and understand the pain that Grace's words and behaviors were masking. So, learning to truly hear what the other person is saying and sometimes reading between the lines is then a really critical and often overlooked aspect of listening. Many times when we are in conflict with someone, as they're talking, we're engaged with an internal responding monologue that's running through our heads. And we're paying a lot more attention to that than we are to what the other person is saying. It could be that we're thinking about a stressful situation of our own that's troubling us. It could be work or other relationships, anything. And if we're thinking about those things, it means that we're pretty much tuned out and tuned to a completely different channel from the heart of what our loved one is trying to tell us. We might get bits and pieces of the basic information and convince ourselves that we heard them, but we don't really get the true meaning of the experience that individual is struggling with because it's blocked out by the static of our own stuff. Maybe we're upset that the other person's thoughts or feelings are different from ours, and we're thinking that their thoughts make no sense. Or maybe we're thinking that they are just plain wrong in our opinion. Mostly at that point, we are already coming up with a rebuttal of some sort in order to prove our point, to prove that we are right and the other person is wrong, or if not that they're wrong, but less right than ours, or that our point is equally as valid. As a result, once again, we're tuned into a completely different channel from the heart of what our loved one is really trying to tell us. In fact, as you're listening to what I'm saying right now, one of those rebuttals could be popping up in your head. And if that's the case, you may have just proven the point. But at the end of the day, what we have to realize is that when we're in our heads, we run a significant risk of missing the heart of what our loved one is really trying to communicate to us. So remember Lila, who was the single mother that I told you about before. This picture is not her, just to let you know. But Lila came to realize that in her interactions with her daughter, the monologue in her head seemed to center around often how tired she was or how much she didn't really understand Grace and wondering why she couldn't be more like her. And even how everything that she as a single mom did never really seemed to be enough. She really was just really tired, and Grace was a handful. But in those moments and thoughts, Lila had stopped listening to her daughter. And that is really the key thing that was a hindrance for her and that we need to understand as part of what we're talking about today. Consider this from your own personal perspective. Think of a time when you were earnestly trying to explain yourself, yet you perceived that the other person who was supposed to be listening was not truly hearing you, nor did they really seem genuinely invested in understanding you. How did this impact how you felt? Did you shut down? Did you stop sharing because you didn't really believe that they cared? Did you get angry or raise your voice because you felt ignored or unimportant? Maybe you responded in some other way. The result, most likely, though, was a complete shutdown or breakdown in the lines of communication. Stepping away from focusing on our own internal dialogue and instead learning to listen effectively so as to hear your loved one's heart can significantly improve the communication dynamics within your relationships and reduce feelings of hurt or being ignored. So, how then can you truly hear what is at the heart of what your loved one is trying to communicate? One of the things that you are going to want to begin to learn to do is to pay full attention. This seems simple enough, but there's some key aspects to paying full attention that are important and that often get missed. Think about how you feel when someone is giving you their undivided attention, physically and mentally and emotionally. You feel important, you feel secure, you feel valued and validated and encouraged that your thoughts and your feelings really do matter to that person. When people feel this way, they are more likely to want to engage meaningfully with that person. So how then do you do that? So, when I think about this idea of paying full attention, as counselors, what I teach my students in terms of paying full attention is how to attend. And attending refers to our intentional attempt to be fully present. And as I said, physically, mentally, emotionally, present for the conversation right at hand. So troublesome things like work or concerns that you brought home from work, cleaning the house, other relational problems that you're experiencing, all of these take a break from having your focus. And your full attention is given to the person that's in front of you. And it's really not good enough to just say that you're listening. Your loved one is going to be more likely to believe you and truly engage with you when you're showing them that you're listening. So how do you show them and not tell them simply that you are paying full attention? One thing that you're going to want to do is to free your mind. If something else is weighing on you heavily that you believe will interfere with your ability to focus on that other person, you need to get rid of it. So how do you do that? Write it down in a safe place, maybe a notebook so you don't forget about it, and then return to it after your conversation. Often that can be helpful to ease your mind to know that this is of concern to you, but you're just putting it down in a safe place and you know how to get back to it and you won't forget. The other thing that you will want to be able to do is to be fully present, avoiding other activities and ridding yourself of electronic distractions. Just like when you are working on being able to say what you mean effectively and communicate what you mean effectively. Listening is the same way. It requires the same skills. Being focused, turning off the electronics, the TV, the computer screens, the email, the Facebook that pop up all the time. This is important in being fully present. And then you want to physically attend. So, physically attending means that you're facing the individual squarely so that you can see their eyes, you can see their facial expressions, you can read their body language, and so that they can see yours as well. Whenever someone is talking to you or you're talking to them, your eyes kind of scan them to see, are they really paying attention to me? And you look at that body language and the facial expression and you read that and you take in information and make judgments about whether or not you should continue being transparent with that individual, whether you should continue really showing them your heart and are they valuing it. So when you're listening, offer that to the person who's speaking to you. Face them so they can see your eyes, see your facial expressions and your body language, engaged with them, and they may more easily be able to continue to talk with you about the difficult things that they may be experiencing. Another thing that you're going to want to be able to do is develop an empathetic ear. This will allow you to perceive more clearly and maintain an external dialogue between you and the other person instead of an internal monologue between you and yourself. And so developing that empathetic ear is something that you really are going to want to be able to do to be able to respond to their thoughts and feelings, which is that external dialogue that's occurring between you and them, and not responding to the thoughts and feelings in your head, which represent your internal monologue. So, how do you develop that empathetic ear? Well, as you hear the words and observe their eyes and body language, what emotions do they seem to be describing and experiencing? Focus on those. Ask yourself, if I were experiencing what they are describing, how might I feel? And think through those feeling words. How can I respond in a way that communicates my desire to understand what they are feeling, whether I agree with them or not? That is extremely important. And then the final thing that you're going to want to be able to do is reflect and respond with empathy. In order to listen effectively and hear your loved one's heart, reflection is a key technique that you can use. And it will help you demonstrate to your loved one not only that you're listening, but that you're trying to understand. When we reflect, we use our own words to summarize the key emotions we perceive that our loved one is feeling and what we understand to be the impact of that situation on them. And that's key. We're trying to understand the impact of the situation on them. When you respond using reflection, you're answering those questions that we asked above. If you recall what those questions are, they were, if I were experiencing what my loved one is describing, how would I feel? Right? And how can I respond in a way that communicates my desire to understand what they're feeling, whether I agree or not? Reflecting allows you to answer those types of questions. In the practice activities at the end of this lesson, I will guide you through the details specifically of how to reflect effectively and with empathy so that you can begin to see improvement in your face-to-face conversations. These are the first steps for honing the skill of listening to hear the heart of your loved one and what they're trying to communicate to you. When used with the other skills taught in the series, they will go a long way to helping you bolster and improve the connections that you have with the significant people in your life. And so now it's up to you. And so now it's up to you. consider what we've covered today and use the worksheets provided to identify how you can make improvements in your listening skills so that you can hear your loved one's heart, understand them and their intentions more accurately, and be able to consistently communicate to them that you're listening and that you care. It is a key next step in adding to your communication skill set and changing how you relate to your loved ones. I encourage you to take your time and be thoughtful about working on this and through this process. And I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.